Heyo, it's been a minute since the last episode, and it might be a minute until the next one. But today I'm excited to share one more episode with you guys. I got to talk to Jason Kerner, who is the CTO at Hansel Medical. And you might remember that I actually talked to his co-founder, Greg, back in episode 7. So lots of good information about what they're doing in the medical equipment space. In today's episode, Jason and I dig a little bit deeper into the technical side of things. We talk about dealing with imposter syndrome, especially as technical leaders. We talk about how he's using AI in his development toolchain. And finally, we talk about why you should be wary of low-code solutions. This is episode 17 of How Not to Build. Jason, thank you, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for inviting me. No, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
What are you glad about today?
Glad about today. I've been looking forward to this episode all day, to be honest. Yeah. I like talking tech. It's kind of I like talking about lots of things, hobbies and stuff I've got, but basically like tech, I'm actually genuinely interested in. So yeah, tech and business together, those two things kind of, I always find fascinating basically. Kind of keeping up to date with what's going on in the normal mainstream world and also, the tech world basically, and try and piecing it all together. I just really enjoy it. It's just a kind of thing I'm into.
Cool. And that's like exactly why I wanted to have you on the episode, just a teaser for the listeners. Like, I think your perspective on that is like, it's a rare person that can really bring those two worlds together like very clearly. So that was in our first conversation. I'm excited to share that more today. Is there anything that you're anxious about? I got you off guard with these ones.
Yeah, answering that question. No, I mean, I think generally, I'd tell you a little story probably is when I was younger, public speaking was a big thing, basically. Trying to basically do a presentation of something in front of a crowd of people with all their eyes on you. And you're thinking, oh my God, am I going to get this right? But I think two things basically that I kind of learned along the way, and that's helped the anxious side of it. One, watching Steve Jobs do keynotes, basically. When he was around and doing those keynotes, just the style he did was something that I always thought, actually, I really like how he comes across. And I have a habit, and a lot of people who know me will know this, I talk really quickly, especially when I'm trying to kind of get something out. But you watch Steve Jobs and he puts the pauses in the right place. He'll stop talking when he needs to. And that all helps. So there's that part of it. But also knowing your subject matter basically is another thing. If you're asked to do something and talk about something that you're not 100% on, that's where you get anxious about a lot of things, because you don't know whether you're right or, someone's going to call you out on it. But if you get really into the subject matter and you're confident in it and you've done your research, you know what you're talking about, and your imposter syndrome plays a little bit and you go, do I know what I'm talking about? But actually, yeah, you do. So yeah, I think I used to get anxious about that public speaking side of things, but actually I could probably, and I've done talks in front of, a few hundred people. I haven't gone to the thousands yet, don't book me for anything big yet, but a few hundred people I'm quite happy with standing on stage, and
this episode's going out to millions.
Is it? Right. Oh, well, that's a big jump from a few hundred to millions, but I'm cool with it. I can't see them right now, so that's probably okay.
Cool. Do you have any subject matter Actually, I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome, I would say. What pro tips do you have to become that subject matter expert, to be ready for the public scene like that?
I think, like I say, doing your research on the topic is one, which is kind of an obvious thing to say. But basically, if someone asks you to talk about, microservices or even APIs or MacBook Airs or iPods or whatever, whatever the topic is, you'll be able to kind of, do some research yourself, some previous history. But I think the other thing as well is anticipate some of the questions. Some people will be there to generally learn from you because they don't know. And having to kind of position yourself at the varying degrees of education of the audience, right? You will have people there that really know their stuff, and you will have beginners who don't know anything about the subject. So you've got to get the balance right of how you come across. So that kind of also, that sometimes softens it a little bit, because you're not going to be in a room of experts, unless you do find yourself in a room of experts, and that's quite scary, to be honest. But generally most things, there's a degree of prior knowledge there. So you have to kind of get your own self kind of reel back in a bit to go, actually, I don't need to be, a professor at this thing. I need to be in the mid-level to try and teach people something, but also kind of, match the people in the room. So kind of grounding yourself there is probably a key thing as well, is to just like, you don't have to know everything,
Mm.
but also have a story to tell. Basically, I think people are interested in people's experiences of how you've found that particular topic, how you researched it, how you interpreted it, and yeah,
Mm.
that's what I like as well. Basically, been to quite a few conferences over the years, various places, tech stuff, and you come away from some going, oh yeah, I learned something there, and then you ask someone you went with, and they went, no, it was rubbish. It's like, what? We're in the same room. Well, are you seeing a different thing? And but that's the thing, though, right? Everyone comes there to get something different out of it, and if you can find your space of where you want to operate, that will help you a little bit, I think.
I love that. So you're saying, actually, I really like how you said you don't have to be a professor. Round yourself in the middle of the audience. I really like that. I think it's a really good way. I've never thought about it that way. The other thing that you said was, it just left me. Telling the story. So I actually really appreciate that too, because I think it makes you very relatable if you tell somebody basically like, hey, here's what I did to come to the conclusions that I have, whether it was experience, whether it was, books, podcasts, studying Steve Jobs talks, whatever it is, right? Like, I think that can just really help humanize you. And even to the person in the audience who might be, you're afraid like, oh, that guy over there, he's way above me, he might be judging me. I feel like that's a really good way to get in front of that and just be like, here's where I am. So you're not like pretending like you're a professor. You're kind of letting people know, like, this is just where I'm at. This is what I've learned so far, take it or leave it.
Exactly.
Really smart. Yeah, I like that.
In the world of tech, you're always going to meet someone that knows the framework better than you, the AWS infrastructure better than you. But then you'll meet people that on the flip side who don't, and they'll be going, well, tell me how you do that thing. And it'd just be conveying your experience and your background and how you've looked at that problem and wanted to solve it your way, basically. And I say, some people find that interesting and some people will walk away going, no, I'm still right. And that's fine. Because everyone has an opinion, and that's totally fine. But if you can kind of change one mind in that room, and where they walk away and go, actually, I did find that actually quite interesting, and you've done well.
That's such a great perspective. So then, what are you, right now, at the time of this recording, what are you most hopeful about?
I think there's a lot of stuff in the tech world generally that's moving quite forward at a pace, right? So obviously, we can't probably not mention AI with going on, and there is just a massive, fundamental, rapid change. Basically, every week there's about or every day there's like 50 new posts on X of someone going, oh, there's this new product out that does AI this way now, and you can code with it, and you can build apps, and you can do whatever. So I think what's interesting with that is it is going to fundamentally change the software development space. Previous things have kind of come along and gone, oh yeah, this is going to be great, but this actually is opening it up for more people to kind of operate themselves. Social media tried this 10, 15 years ago when it came out, right? That they were obviously connecting people. That's the message, that obviously got put out, and then it was advertising that was the money. But then also the whole small businesses thing. Small businesses operate on Facebook, operate on Instagram, operate all over the place. And you get that global reach. But those people couldn't code. They couldn't dev. They couldn't make their own apps. They couldn't, get a website, but it would look all right. But that's why they were on Etsy or on eBay or someone else, because they're not going to build their own e-com site. But now they could just go on and go, actually, I want to do this. So you're actually opening up a world of more people to solve new problems. And I think that's really interesting because you're just removing the barriers of entry for people to play in this space. Previously, it was like a space where you had to go and study this thing or tinker around yourself since you were small, coding in your bedroom, and then actually getting a job, lucky in the space to kind of do it. So I think it's really interesting, and opening it up for more people in the tech space is good. And on the flip side, it's how the larger orgs will want to, also kind of run away with it. And is the gap going to get even bigger? And but is Evil Corp going to rise up from somewhere? But you just don't know. But I think tech changing for the better. I think AI is going to help us do that.
What's your most common answer to the question that we all get as tech people? Like, are you afraid of AI taking your job?
It's a good question. I think it will take some jobs. But you look back in history, and jobs were taken by technology. You look at the early airliners. So there used to be a crew of 3 or 4 at the front of the plane. Now there's 2.
Mm.
Because the engineer's not needed anymore. Computers taking the plane and managing all the fuel throughout the flight. There's a film, Hidden Figures, basically, and the NASA
Oh, yeah.
story in the 60s, basically. The computers eventually came in and replaced all those.
All
So,
right.
there's going to be throughout time, but that film is a good metaphor because the characters in that saw what was coming and shifted and changed and learnt the tech. And I think, yes, it might take some jobs, but you're going to need people to help, craft the AI, prompt the AI, improve the AI, and become a subject matter expert. AI in the early days, it still hallucinates, basically. You still get stuff wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
coded it and I look at the code it's produced and it's like, that's not right. And then you ask it and it goes, yeah, it's not right. It's like, well, why did it not give me the right answer then? It's still not doing everything you want it to do right now anyway. It's going to be some time. I think it will take some jobs, but new ones will be crafted as a result. I think
Yeah.
that's just the natural evolution of the working, space, basically.
Yeah.
Whether it takes developer jobs, I think it's going to be a while. It might take, some marketing jobs, posting on social media, those type of
Mm-hmm.
things. Agents are a big thing. But, there's still a lot of human input in
Mm-hmm.
any industry, tone of
Mm-hmm.
voice, is the AI going to just suddenly lash out at someone if you end up kind of poking it too much? And that now damages your brand. You can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be really careful how you deploy and use this stuff, and that's why you do need a human around to protect this, basically. So I don't think you're going to overnight replace a lot of roles. I
Yeah.
think it will take some years.
I like your analogy around the pilots, especially because I like how you're saying, because that feels very, very accurate analogy to say, hey, it used to take 5 people, 6 people, 7 people to fly a plane. We're down to 2. And I kind of feel like from a purely technical perspective as engineers, that's probably what's likely to happen. You used to need 10 engineers to build this app in 6 months. You only need 2 engineers to build this app in 10 months now. So I do think you'll see more of that. I think it's a good thing to be prepared for. Actually, I heard a junior engineer the other day start to complain. He's not that junior. He's probably mid-level. But he's kind of complaining like, hey, they're asking more and more of me. And I'm sort of like, well, you should always be expanding your tool set so that you can do more and more, especially with all this AI stuff,
No, exactly. I think if you're an engineer these days and you're not using AI, definitely you should be asking yourself, well, why am I not using it? I need to keep up on my skills here. I mean, you'll be probably keeping your eye out on, there's an update for my IDE, or there's a new version of my framework, So why aren't you going, actually, there's a new AI agent, I should actually know about that. Or my Git client is now generating my commit notes for me. Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
It saves me a few minutes each day. Brilliant. I'll get that back. So there are going to be little productivity gains. I think what is going to be interesting though with developers or any AI really is when it is generating you stuff, like you say, you could do something with 2 developers that you might previously had to do with, 9 or 10, is you have to know that AI is doing that right. There's all various horror stories you hear on the internet where Vibe coded something overnight and then deployed it, and they've run up a massive AWS bill, or they've leaked all their API key, or they've been hacked because they haven't known actually what the hell is this thing generated and how secure is it and how scalable is it, or did I forget to do something and win the config? And you need that experience because the AI is not going to tell you; it's just going to do what it's told.
Right.
And if you don't tell it to do it, it's not going to do it for you.
And it doesn't do a very good job of doing what it's told. To
Yeah.
your point you made a second ago, like the hallucinations, like just yesterday, my code, it was doing like library imports inside of the function in the middle of the file.
Yeah.
And I had to tell it like 2 or 3 times in one given day, like move those to the top. Like, why would you even ever put them in the middle of the function like that? Like, why wouldn't you put, and it's just like you said, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. That was dumb of me. It's like, okay, well,
do it right the first time then. Yeah.
And I had to remind it. I think that was a surprising thing, that I had to remind it, don't do it. That after I told it once, I told it twice, and I think even maybe a third time I told it later that day, like again. And that to me is like, okay, I'm jumping in the middle of your thought, but I think it's such a good point. I'm trying to underline your thought here that like, even after you tell AI something one time, you will probably need to tell it again a couple of times. And even then you have to keep double checking it, which is what you're saying. Like, you still need that human in the loop.
You do. And the technology will get better. I mean, obviously, it's limitation on context windows and things like that. It will only know so much at any given time. And these context windows get bigger, but your code bases will get bigger. So, it's going to load more into it. And it's just going to be this rolling context window of stuff. Eventually, it will just forget out the other side of its head. And now it's like, oh, yeah, that thing you told me 6 months ago, I've forgotten.
Right.
Or you end up writing a ton of rules for it, which consume all your tokens up. And you'd be like, well, by the time I've written all the rules and I've set the prompt, I could have just done it
Yeah.
in the style I wanted, So,
Yeah.
and this is the thing. And what I've found with a lot of the models that I use when I'm doing AI coding to help me do stuff. You're using a latest framework. It's come out relatively recently, last month or two, and the model doesn't know it. So obviously that's where the MCP protocol stuff can come in and help you, but it's more stuff to wire up.
Yeah.
And it's it just takes a lot of this prep. And now it might catch up. So as soon as a new framework comes out, the model knows it, and you're going to get some advantage there. But I mean, one of the thought I had in my head is like when the Matrix came out way back when 1999, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
There's various points in the film where he goes, "Oh, how do I fly a helicopter?" And it's like, okay, I know that, and I know Kung Fu is straight away because they download it in the Matrix.
Yeah.
And the AI stuff's kind of like that. It's like, I'm an iOS developer now, almost, but not quite. Or I'm an Android developer now. And people have been doing that skill for a while are going to be probably a little bit upset. They're like, no, you're not an Android developer, mate. You've been doing it 5 minutes, and I've been doing it 15 years. And I'm like, yeah, but I can still do some stuff. So it's enough.
That's such a good point, because I'm thinking too about, it's been hard for me to articulate some of these things, but hearing you say that just now makes me think, there still is no replacement for experience. And even though we have this amazing tutor of AI that can give us a lot of answers, if you have never developed on iOS before, and you ask AI, what are my 3 options? It's going to give you 3 options, but you have no idea where those options came from. You don't know if that's a bunch of like Reddit, threads that are bashing some individual somewhere or whatever. And so if you don't have that experience, you really have no way to grok, no pun intended, those 3 answers to understand which one is really best. And as you mentioned earlier in our conversation, it's so contextual. One answer is best for one situation where another one's best for another situation. So like you're sort of drinking from this fire hose of information that AI is giving you. And you're going to make better, more educated guesses, sure, but there just is no replacement for that 15 years of experience where.
No. And the context is key in many ways. It could be the use case of the piece of code you're writing, could be internal. The AI doesn't know that. So in which case, it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to scale, it just needs to do the thing it needs to do. You could be a startup, right? And you'd be like, cool, I need to get this thing to work. I don't have to worry about scale. I just want to kind of prove the point. I want to get some investment. I want to do whatever. You could be an enterprise, and then you've got a ton of risk around it. You basically, am I going to get hacked? Is this thing secure? Is it going to pass a pen test? Have I got my SOC 2 clearance stuff all okay? Is my ISO certification still going to be valid when I do this thing? So all these, and it doesn't know that unless you tell it. So it's going to give you, it'll give you an answer, and you'll be like, okay, this is fine, but is that going to be for the thing you want to use it for?
Yeah.
And that's where I think in the startup space, you can definitely accelerate to market, because you can just, generally get something out relatively quickly. Deal with the problems later. That's a scaling problem. That's a money problem down the road when people like giving you hundreds of millions of pounds to if you've got a great idea.
Right.
But, at the enterprise scale, it's just a ton of risk, basically. It's like, how risky do you want to play this game?
Yeah. So speaking of experience, you have quite a bit of it, and you were the global architect at IntelliCentrics. Before we get to some of that, and kind of, I want to hear some of the things that you've learned and stories that you might have to share from that experience. But how did you get into tech in the first place? Your story was pretty interesting.
So I've always been into tech, but I think where it's kind of started is my dad was involved in analog modems, fax modems back in the day, before broadband, before ADSL, before all this kind of fiber stuff that we have today.
Mm-hmm.
And dial-up modems were a thing. I don't know if anyone remembers those. I don't know if you remember them.
Oh, I remember connecting. In order to play my computer game, I had to like plug in the thing. I had to like wait for 2 minutes or something.
To connect, and then someone's using a phone, so you can't do it, or the receiver, and it all goes wrong. But the dial-up modem scene was basically what my dad was involved with, and he was involved in basically getting them approved to work on foreign telephone lines, basically, and testing them to make sure that these various manufacturers of modems were going to work on those lines. So he was involved in all the tech around making that work, and so he got me my first PC when I was younger, and it was a 286 12 megahertz PC running DOS 5, I think it was at the time, and I got into that.
Nice.
And you could do some stuff on DOS, you could play some games, you could do a bit of basic programming on it, line numbers, 10, 20, go to 10, all that kind of old fun stuff. But and then after that, you just get into that nerdy space at that time, where basically you build your own PC and you get a CD-ROM drive, and then you get a DVD drive, and an MPEG-2 decoder card. You can watch films on your computer, and it's amazing. And just growing up around that, the whole LAN gaming scene back in the day, where you cart your PC around your friend's house and set up a network and spend 4 hours playing Command and Conquer.
Yeah.
So you get into all of that kind of stuff, and that just gets you into that kind of, hardware space of understanding what's going on with everything. But then going through school and uni, basically, I did, computing at school, I did e-commerce systems at uni. And then you just fall into where opportunities start coming up, and where a programming, or development opportunities come up. And I think timing wise, various people kind of obviously grow up at different times. There's people older than me, there's people younger than me. And, when I think I grew up, I think was the better time to do it, because obviously I might be biased here, right? But
yeah, maybe.
I think previous to that, you're growing up with, web application type approach to stuff. You're building desktop apps, you're doing stuff with mainframes and all that kind of older type stuff. Whereas growing up in the web world, when the cloud starts to come out, when the internet starts to kind of, especially with modems, you start to play with bulletin boards, and then the internet came out and you could load up Netscape Navigator and see stuff in a browser. And growing up in that time basically kind of put me in the space to go, I want to be a part of this. I kind of want to build the websites and start off with that. But I'd say opportunities came up. So, I met a few people who needed a web application to manage doctor surgeries. So I built something around that on a web stack basically, and they ran 40 surgeries off of it. So it was quite good. And then basically just various things, working for a digital agency, security company, writing a phishing platform. That's an interesting take of
a phishing platform.
Yeah, security training, basically. So not obviously in a bad way. I'm not trying to fish people.
Yeah.
Well, I am trying to fish people, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So it's basically simulated phishing, and that's an interesting take, because you have to kind of deal with scale of people opening all your emails, but actually you want to serve them the training. So, and then we get into SMS phishing and all sorts of things like that. So building those platforms basically just get you into that space of building web applications. And I just find it really interesting. If it's a problem to solve. It's like we've got to train these people on security. So how are we going to do it? Or we've got to manage these GP practices. How are we going to do that? And they might sound kind of trivial things, basically, but they're problems these days. And people are using paper and whiteboards and old school, things of doing it. I'm like, why are you not using a computer?
Yeah.
Now, it's not to say that every problem in the world should be solved with a web application or a mobile app. There are some things that pen and paper will just work perfectly fine for, and the type of persona using it will not want to use a phone or a computer to do it, because they simply don't have time. And there's a few examples, I could think of for doing that, but checklists for stuff, basically.
Right.
You have to get something quickly and review some data, or you don't want to go, I've got to log in, I forgot my password, or where's the iPad gone with it on? All those things are just going to stop you doing the job you need to do. So not everything is solve it with a web app, but I think going up through time with tech, but starting with the classic LAN party gaming scene was probably a good accelerator. But then the birth of the internet around the time I was growing up probably didn't help. That helped as well.
So then how did you end up as, I guess just through that experience, just growing in your career, you ended up as global architect at Intellicentrics. What's sometimes these like big names from enterprises and stuff, I'm like, do people even know what those titles mean? So like just give us like the 60-second, what was the responsibilities of the global architect?
Intellicentrics operate in a lot of countries. I say a lot of countries, obviously it's 200 countries in the world, but we're in the US, UK, they went into China, they're in Canada as well. So in terms of kind of population space and coverage for hospitals, it was quite a lot. They were a credentialing company.
And remind us real quick, what does Intellicentrics do?
So Intellicentrics dealt with healthcare reps going into hospital facilities, mostly in the operating room, the surgical areas, and to go into those spaces, you really want to know that that person should be in those spaces with every kind of credential they should have. So have they had the training? Have they had the background check performed? Have they had their vaccinations up to date? Are they immune from certain things, basically, so they don't need the vaccination? And that logistically is a nightmare to manage through many sites, because every hospital have got their own way of doing it, their own policy, their own kind of ways of doing it. So IntelliCentrics was a credentialing platform to basically come over the top of all those and be kind of like the passport of going into those facilities.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah.
So imagine that problem, but obviously in hospitals in the UK, US, then they were getting into the China hospitals as well through a joint venture, Canada as well. So basically this problem is a global problem. So the global aspect of it came from that, in that there's presence of across the world of that platform, and not only the reps of credentialing, they had aspects to credential doctors, which is immensely complicated.
Wow.
Because they go a lot deeper in terms of the detail of what that doctor should have. And if you times that by the, permutations within countries, that gets really complicated. So yeah, that's basically where that came from.
So as a global architect, I'm just trying to think, like, what is a day in the life of a global architect? Are you just meetings wall to wall? How much is it paper? Are you writing white papers? Do you ever code?
Oh, all of the above. All of the above. I think I like to be hands-on, to be honest, because I want to make sure that if I'm having a conversation with a development team, a tech lead, even a product owner, anyone like that, basically, that you're able to kind of adapt your language of how you talk to those teams. So you can go to the detail that an engineer will, want to talk to you about, and go, well, if I communicate with the API this way, it's going to do that. And you need to understand what they're talking about. But at the same time, if a PO is coming in with a business requirement, you don't need to use technical language. You just need to understand where they're coming at it commercially and go, actually, well, look, we can do this thing, and that'd be great, but it's going to take us 6 months. We're like, no, I can't do that. Because we're going to miss this opportunity. This deal is not going to go through unless we, hit this deadline. So we have to scale back our approach or think about the problem differently. Day in the life, talking to managing the kind of expectations of those different stakeholders, but also this tech stacks in each country were different. Just not by design, but basically by accident and by time. Basically, we had different apps in different places running on different, back ends, different front end technologies, different business system integrations, and how am I going to glue all this stuff together? Because otherwise, if we want to deploy to another country, which one do we pick? Which one can we localize? Which one is already localized? Which one's got time zone support? Oh, that one doesn't, so we can't use that. And it's those sometimes basic questions. And you think, well, why hasn't it got time zone support? It's like, well, we wrote it in the UK. We've only got one time zone. We don't need to. And stuff like that comes up, and then you have to go, right, okay, well, how are we going to fit all this stuff together? So yeah, it was kind of standardizing data, integration points, scaling, basically, those types of conversations you're having, but all levels of the business, basically.
Wow.
On both sides of the pond, and in the China direction.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty massive. What was, and we'll get to, like, I heard you say a little bit there about just balancing and bringing together the tech decisions with the business, especially in that role. I want to get to that, but first, what was like the biggest technical mistake that you made or that you saw was made at IntelliCentrics that you learned from?
So I think there's a couple basically that spring to mind. So one of them being, and this still happens today, libraries and frameworks come out that you think, oh, they sound great, we should adopt that. We should put all our effort, all our eggs in that basket, because that's going to be the next big thing. And more often than not, it's not. Basically, it gets killed off. It's, it doesn't get the community adoption everyone was hoping. It's really hard to work with. So those things just basically don't pan out. One of them I saw was the Google Polymer project, which was for web components. And just as a habit Google like doing, is they kill stuff off after a while, or introduce a lot of breaking changes between major versions, and then you have to go, now I've got to do it all over again. And it's that you've got to be really careful about what technologies you want to choose to adopt. There's hundreds of programming languages out in the world these days that you can pick from. There's frameworks that come out every day. But I think one thing you got to always bear in mind, especially if you're a business, whether you're a startup or a mid-size or an enterprise, is it comes back to risk, but also, is this thing still going to be alive in 1, 2, 3 years time? Difficult question to answer.
Right.
But there are some that have been around for a while and probably will continue to be quite well supported. So you're better off just picking one of them, because can I get resources?
I was going to ask, what's your pro tip for helping other CTOs who might be listening to this, or just senior tech people, what's your pro tip for helping them make that decision? Sounds like you were just answering it though.
Yeah. So I think one is kind of one, community support kind of for what is around. And I'm not kind of talking particular libraries here. I'm talking kind of major frameworks, basically. If you look at, there's always a debate of going, oh, is PHP dead? Is Rails dead? Is React dead? Is every day of the week, there's one of these things that come out.
Yeah.
No, they're not. None of those are dead. But basically, you see stuff on, about Go, Rust. There's all these little ones that are kind of, still kicking around. They've probably got their place. They're probably great. But can you get resource for it? Is it supported? And the thing of the web these days is it's built with kind of dependencies, basically. I remember my computing teacher always saying, like, you're just going to be doing 80% of your job is really just continuing someone else's code, basically. And really that's what it is, right? If the most of the world today applications are built from libraries someone else has written, and you're just kind of bundling together in their own little way. So you're taking this package from, Composer or NuGet or NPM, and you're putting it in your application, and you've built an app because someone else has done all the hard work. But if that thing's not been updated in 5-6 years, that's going to raise some red flags. Going, now what happens? If my framework changes as a major version, I'm screwed, because that thing's just going to drop support straight away.
Yeah.
So you've got to be aware of how your app is coupled together with your dependencies, and backing a major horse like React or Vue, .NET, Laravel these days, Ruby on Rails, they've all got great ecosystems. What is the ecosystem that's built out around the thing that you're looking at? Because if there isn't one, don't do it. It's not going to go very far. There'll always be another JavaScript framework around the corner, as there is every week, because someone thinks they've got a better idea than React. But at the end of the day, they might just get bored, and that thing's not going to progress further.
Yeah, that's actually really good. Paying attention to the community, like you said, and depending on how aware you are, how much time you have to research too, like following the creators, I would say. Like I remember there was one core contributor to Node.js, couple core people, I would say, from Node.js. They ended up moving over and contributing to the Rust side of the world, which for me, that was like a big validator. It's like, okay, I've heard about Rust. Seems like a good like hobby horse thing. But as soon as I see people like that moving over there, now I'm much more, my interests are perked. And to your point, they might leave after 3 or 6 months or something, right? So like maybe you should give that time to marinate and see if they're still there a year from now. And then if they are, I like that perspective. I don't think I thought about that.
Don't be the first in, basically. Let someone else be the first in. Let someone else take the risk. I like watching the Formula One, and there's always a race we're going, who's going to change their tires first? And all the other teams watch that guy to go, is he going faster or is he going slower? And then they go, crap, he's going faster. We should basically now change our tires too. So if it works, great, but don't take the risk if you're unsure. Let someone else kind of just test the water for you.
Yeah.
And then see where it goes. Because otherwise, if you do it, and it might be fine if you're tinkering around at home in the weekend or the evenings or whatever, and it's not your kind of day job or not your company, it might be fine. But, when you're kind of betting the company on it, you want to be a bit careful.
Yeah. Good stuff. Is there any other lessons learned from IntelliCentrics that you want to share?
Yeah, so the other one, I said I had two. So the other one, probably I'd be aware of low code solutions. But I mean, this is an interesting answer these days, because I think AI is going to probably, to our earlier point, is probably going to change up the low code solution world that existed in the past. And the reason why I kind of have a hatred for low code solutions, and they did have a couple at IntelliCentrics, was they are never low code. There is someone that has to then go and learn the domain specific language for those things. They now become a massive single point of failure, and they're the only one that knows how that thing works. And it just takes a while to get anything done, because the low code think they know better, and you have to learn that world. And I could have written this thing by now.
Yeah.
In a way that will actually work. So, but this is where AI is coming in, because now that's going to replace the low code space, because you don't have to go buy a low code tool. You're just going to go, I want one of these, and ChatGPT or Cursor or Copilot makes you one. So the low code platform world that existed probably 10 years ago or so, that started to rise up a little bit to try and get these non-developer types to make stuff, or you build your entire stack on this low-code foundation. I just think I hate those things. They never pan out how the glossy brochure said they were. And let's say there were a couple of them there that previous architects went, oh yeah, this is the thing to do. I'm like, no, it's not. Don't do that.
So maybe shed a little bit more light on that, because I really like this subject matter, especially as tech people and as we're trying to figure out, sort of where to invest our, upskilling, right? Because so low code in my mind, it's got a couple different possible like applications. There's something like the Open API SDK code generator. So you can generate a front end client from a schema. And then you've got something like, let's say, like N8N or Zapier or one of these things where it's low code, but you're able to connect systems. You're able to do some business logic on those things. It's kind of like webhook driven, API driven.
Yeah, the integration.
And then maybe the third,
service space.
Yeah. And then maybe the third category I'm thinking of, I don't have good like technical categorical bucket terms for these, but is kind of like your Microsoft Office / Azure like suite of like enterprise tools where they have these like business process modeling tools where you can do all this kind of like crazy stuff. Like you're saying, they have like their domain specific languages and they're like really deep, kind of heavy stuff. So with your comments about being wary of low code, like how do you fit each of those buckets? What should we be leveraging? What should we not be leveraging?
Yeah, no. The last one is the one I actually hate because I think you're going to sink a load of time and effort into it. And yeah, you can extend some code, like Microsoft, we'll have a whole platform that can do that. And you could go, oh, you can write some .NET if you want to do some stuff. It's like, well, I'll just write some .NET in the first place. Will just work, and I don't have to learn your stupid language. So you've got that. But the early ones, Zapier, the integration platform as a service example, there's tons of those things out. And I think there's also, there's a bunch of ETL tools these days. If you want to build a data lake or a data warehouse, you don't have to write a load of extraction code. You can just go get one of them and it reads your database and it dumps it in an S3 bucket. Brilliant. Cool. That saved me a ton of time. So I love those things. That's kind of boilerplate stuff. If you're trying to build a business application, like say your business process kind of tooling stuff, or even use this as a foundation, as a replacement, as a framework, like we're not going to do it in .NET or we're not going to do it in Laravel. We're not going to do it in Rails. We're going to build it on top of this thing. And, everyone's now got to learn that, which nobody has an experience with. And you could bring some people in. It'll just take you ages to find them. And, they might cost a lot as well. So you've got to be aware of your headcount cost there as well.
Yeah.
But the learning curve's massive for these things on some of them, because you're now just taking a bunch of experienced developers who are used to building apps to go, no, I want you guys to go build it in this way because I've got this dream of we can run our entire business off this stack. And I think that's where I'm like, no, don't do that. Just literally do not run that. Yeah. Your first two examples, I agree, they're good. Those ones are fine because let's say it's boilerplate things, but where you have a platform that is kind of designed to be customized, but it has its own DSL, it's got its own kind of take on stuff, and you're trying to bend your business model into it, I think you're just gonna burn cycles and ultimately kill the project at the end of it, or you should do.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I feel like that's a lesson that I've had to learn multiple times, because even as a tech person, right, it's like, oh, this sounds great. Sounds great to take some shortcuts and maybe I can do something. And maybe that's imposter syndrome too, right? Maybe the business guy can do it in 1 month, where if I had to code this by hand, it would take me 6. And so there's definitely times where I'll go try that. And pretty much every single time I've tried it, I have the same conclusion you have, which is like, nah, that wasn't worth it. I should have just built it from scratch.
Exactly. And you look at it the flip side and you go, actually, well, I learned, not to do that again.
It's the How Not To podcast. Yeah,
exactly. There's a lesson there. Don't use low code. But like I say, AI is going to change this now because you can use low code. You could go into Lovable and go, I want an app to do my expenses. There you go, got one. It's going to change the scene a little bit, and I think it's going to go after the low code guys first, which would be interesting. But now you get a massive, and especially in enterprise, you get a massive shadow IT problem. They're not going signing up for SaaS software all over the web with their own email addresses. They're building stuff and deploying it, God knows where.
Yeah,
you got to keep tabs on this stuff.
Yeah, such a good point there. Man, if we had time, I would go down that rabbit trail as well from a IT perspective. But I do want to keep moving. So one of the things that you brought up kind of goes hand in hand with this actually in our first conversation was the importance of balancing technical decisions with business value considerations, right? Another one of these problems that's just endless, kind of tug of war, it seems like. Do you have like an example of you guys having to deal with that in IntelliCentrics and like how you made that trade-off and decided maybe not to do something the right way according to the engineers for the sake of the business?
Yeah, it's one I always grapple with, because as an engineer, you kind of want to solve the problem in the best possible way. You want to make it a nice piece of code that scales and can cope with loads of users, and it doesn't matter who hits it with requests, it's going to still stay there. At the end of the day, though, you might be launching it to 10 people in the first year.
Yeah.
So does it matter? Can you just turn up the dial to 11 on AWS for a bit? It'll be fine. And you don't want to you don't want to optimize too early. I think that's the biggest thing that basically as an architect, I've tripped over previous places and CTO now, we've got to be really careful of how you decide to make that technology choice, and you don't optimize too early for where you are in your life cycle. And that doesn't mean life cycle is I'm going from startup to, billion-dollar company. I could be an enterprise releasing a new bit of software, and I'm not going to just design this thing unless you're Facebook. You're not going to design this thing for like 100 million users from day one,
right?
You might just want to be doing a limited trial to a bunch of people, a bunch of early adopters, and it doesn't have to scale. It's fine. You still got to do your basics, though. I think in the world of data security, don't get hacked. There's stuff every week where someone goes, oh, this new app came out, and then we got access to all the data the next day, and now we know all the users. And we're like, okay, who left the S3 bucket in public mode or something like that? That always happens. Even though there's big banners that come up to go, this is in public mode. Did you really mean to do that? Still somebody does it. So you've got to don't optimize too early, but still get the basics right. Because I think I've tried before in places where I've gone, right, event driven's the way to go. I'm not going down the microservice route entirely. Tried that card as well sometimes. That was a bit of a kind of, not bandwagon to jump on, but it was a nice flavor at the time of tech news kind of cycles. Basically, that came up a few years back. But because you get these patterns coming out, and then goes, oh yeah, we need to do that. You don't. Basically, is the learning I've got for that is
wait. So just because I heard something at like the Google Next conference or whatever that is, and they have a new pattern, I don't have to implement it everywhere right away?
No.
Oh.
No, not at all. You might come back and go, that's really goddamn cool. But no, basically just kind of breathe for a second and go, actually, do I need that? Yeah.
Just breathe.
And I might need it in the future. I'll keep it in my back pocket when the time comes, but I don't need it right now. But event-driven, I think, is useful. I think I would do that. So even if you're building a monolith these days, which is a great starting point, like I say, there's all these frameworks are effectively MVC frameworks. .NET, Laravel, Ruby on Rails. I love those guys. Basically, all of those, you could spin up an app in one terminal command, and you've got an app ready to go, and you can just start adding packages, and you're good. But emit events. If you emit some events and just dump them somewhere for now, that is going to pay dividends later, especially in the world of AI, because you can then use that and build up, a big audit trail that's searchable with natural language. You could then chuck it into a voice model. There's loads of things that unlocks. So the sooner you do that, that's great. So I would do that, but I wouldn't go down the let's just do microservices everywhere route. Like I say, tried that, didn't work. Absolute mess. Unless you've got developers that basically kind of you can bring along for the journey. The organization gives you time to kind of teach them. They're kind of open to it as well, rather than what you get with developers often. They're quite opinionated, and they're like, nope, I want to do it my way. And it's like, yeah, but this is the new way. We want to do it this way. That takes time. That communication, that kind of bringing them along. I'm sometimes a bit impatient. I could just go, no, you're doing it this way. But it doesn't play quite nice with the people soft skill side of it. You end up do that. I think you do have to be careful of how you sell this thing, basically. Sell this journey, this vision.
Yeah.
And being too grand, you're going to scare people. So, but start small. Event driven, stick some events in. I would do that. Just don't do the whole copy Netflix thing, because you're just going to mess it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that. It definitely seems like we've gone through this like pendulum swing, 2 microservices, and now it seems like we're kind of older and wiser and like, okay, I've heard the term modulith, and it's the whole like monorepo approach with, and I've heard people doing it different ways. What do you think about that approach?
There's some good patterns to basically still do basically. So modular monolith is the one. Vertical slicing is another. There's rather than kind of onion architecture. There's loads of patterns you could do on the off chance that later you could easily float something off, rather than it being spaghetti code inside. And that's the thing. You kind of have to put some little thought into it there. But again, coming back to the AI, if you've got an AI coder IDE helping you, you've got to make sure that AI knows you're going to be implementing that pattern, because otherwise it's going to tie your code together in knots all over the show. But
Yeah.
coming back to the business value question, right? So don't do microservices because you're going to be building them for about a year before anyone in the commercial space is going to go, can I actually sell this thing yet? Can I put users on it? Can I do this other thing? Because you're just not going to get there quick enough. You need to get to value quickly to prove it to stakeholders, to investors, to customers, get feedback and iterate. It comes back to the core part of Agile. And I'm not trying to, bang the Agile drum too much, these days, because that's got butchered as well. But still,
Right.
back and iterate is the core thing, right? Get it out there, get some feedback, and go. And the sooner you can do that, the better. So basically, don't over engineer it. It will be my thing of getting that balance right. You will overcomplicate your solution too soon.
You made me think about the Agile thing and the shipping business value, and I had the thought in my head, like, good advice wrongly applied is not bad advice. And I think that's, Agile's been butchered. There's good reasons, because I think it's mostly been sort of over, my personal opinion is that it's kind of been like over applied, over systematized and all this kind of stuff. But getting back to that first principle of just ship a business value.
Yes,
and
exactly.
you said, hey, a year is too long. In your mind, what's the right cadence? And maybe there's different answers for different stages of your business, but for startups, what's the right cadence that, now I'm kind of thinking of like the business looking to their CTO, looking to their dev team. How fast should they and how consistently should they expect that business value from their builders?
I don't see why there's a reason why you can't be deploying multiple times a day. Now, that's not to say releasing to customers multiple times a day, because you've got to realize there's people at the end of this chain, and you will just overload their mind with too many changes too quickly. So, but at the same time, you're a startup, right? So you're probably going to have different cohorts of customers. You're going to have ones that are looking for one problem. You're trying to solve a problem for these people. Some are going to be at one space, some are going to be at a different point in time, and you might have early adopters, might have 10, 15, 20 customers. So I would get into the kind of practices that you should be doing these days. Stick stuff in feature flags, roll it out to one, see if it works, and then you come back and you roll out another feature to the next one. So yes, you can be deploying every day, but you're not getting 20 times of feedback and 20 times of support tickets coming in going, where have you moved that button? You're basically controlling the release to get the feedback, but doing it in a whatever way that actually you're kind of not playing the system a little bit, but basically being clever with your customers and clever with your release cadence, that you don't overload yourself and you don't overload them either. Because say there's only 2 or 3 of you, there's no way you're going to get hammered with support tickets, because you're not going to develop your business. You're going to be too busy dealing with your early adopters. So if you're quite smart about how you release, and there's, like I say, there's feature flag libraries out these days. You don't have to pay for one. There's loads of open source ones. There's loads of packages that do it. You can even just put if this is on and read the database. There's various permutations of doing it. But I'd be smart about it. I don't see why you can't release to a customers, maybe small group, relatively frequently. But I definitely wouldn't, I wouldn't wait like 4, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You're going to lose their interest. They're going to go buy something else. You've got to basically keep them engaged and, convert them to a paying customer. They might not be a paying customer at this point. They could just be an early adopter. You got to keep the cadence up, but don't overload yourselves or them.
That's good. And to bring that full circle, that's a lot easier to do when you have one code base, one monolith that you're working in, versus,
Exactly.
out of the gate having 5 different repos with 5 different, four APIs and one friend in there, whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Good stuff. So from IntelliCentrics, you are now working on something new, which is how we got introduced. I had Greg, your co-founder, on the podcast. Had a great time talking to him. He's here in Dallas with me. You're in the UK, which is pretty cool to have these super remote relationships and ability to start companies together. So tell me just real quick, like, what are you guys working on with the new company? Yeah, give people an overview of that.
Yeah, so Hansel, we're trying to solve a problem in the medical space that's been around for a while, but do it in a way where tech actually works for the users. You have so many things in healthcare tech, but also in just general tech, where you computerize and solve a problem, but you're actually just making them do the thing they did before, but by typing into a form on a browser rather than, doing the thing. With what we want to try and do, and I've always had this kind of personal opinion of how tech should work, is it should work for them, it should work for the user, and then just magically be a thing in the background that they get value from. So we're basically building a asset management tracking platform for surgical trays that move around between facilities, warehouses, distributors, manufacturers, you name it. These things move around in a local city, statewide, wherever they're going to go, and effectively have Bluetooth beacons to track these things, rather than just rely on someone going, yeah, I think it was at this location, or can you update this iMessage to tell me that it got dropped off, or wherever the hell this stuff goes. Nobody knows. And where with background tracking for these Bluetooth things, and an API and a backend and a web management dashboard, everyone in that chain of knowledge can now know where anything is at any given point. And it just works like magic in the background. They don't have to scan stuff. They don't have to kind of look for a QR code. Don't have to, type something in. It's just going to be pinging away, and off we go. And now you know where everything is. So we're working on that. And we've got, and the interesting thing with this is not just SaaS, because we have hardware as well. We have our own beacons that we're designing. And those beacons will survive the sterilization process. That's something that you can do. And people might be listening going, well, why don't you just use AirTag or use Tile? It's like, well, you can, but the damn things will melt if you try and sterilize them. You can't put them in a sterilizer because the temperature they go to. So our beacons are custom designed with the electronics and the components to reach those temperatures, that they'll still work at the temperatures that they reach, which means you don't have to take them out of the trays, you don't have to forget to put them back in again. You just leave everything attached and it all works. So that's what we're doing. So we're basically trying to fundamentally change that of how these things get moved, because and you think, well, why is this a problem? So we've got more surgeries going on these days in various different places. Kit has to be in the right place. People are getting older, they're living longer, people break, they're old, not necessarily everyone's old, but some people, accidents happen.
Hopefully we all get there, though.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah. And surgeries are going up. So there's more volume coming. And this inventory in the space needs to move around. It needs to be scheduled accurately. You need to not waste it. You need to not waste your time, not waste it looking for something that, I'm sure I left it in that hospital and now I don't know where it is. And this stuff's expensive. So this is a problem the industry faces, and we're going to try and solve it and be the platform, the operating model to know where your stuff is. So we're working on that, and we're really excited.
Very cool. Was it difficult to go from global architect to now CTO, co-founder, do all the things all the time for Hansel?
So interestingly, I'm used to doing a lot of stuff all the time. Not maybe by accident. I tend to stray into lots of places. So I'm quite happy playing in that world of going, well, I'll do a bit of marketing, I'll do a bit of product management, do a bit of design. Within kind of founder mode, it's probably 10 times more intense, because one, you have no customers, there's no backup plan, there's no big corporate entity behind you going, you're still going to get paid either way. You've got to basically make sure this thing's going to work. So we're full on every aspect of it, basically from the marketing, the social media, the website, the application itself. I'm doing the app development, the web app development, getting hosting secured, deployment pipelines. I'm using AI because there's only me to your earlier point. You can build applications now with one or two people. And the great thing is, if there's a technology I don't know, just like the Matrix, I can plug in and go, tell me about this, and I want to do this, or even explain this to me like I'm 5. I've never heard of it before. What the hell is this? And it would now I've got enough knowledge I can have a conversation with someone about it. So all that stuff is great. And I mean, for me, I'm straying into, like, say, hardware space, learning about electronics as well. I did love electronics when I was younger. I had one of those little electronic kits, with all the springs on it, and you put wires between to build circuits and stuff like that. But now this is scaling that up somewhat. Thousands of
maybe a little bit.
Factory somewhere, So, but it's all good stuff. But we have early adopter customers. We're getting data in. We've got over probably 250,000 tracking events already that we're working on, and our apps are working well. They're accurate, and we're getting some really good data. The early adopter customers are pleased.
Excellent, good job.
We're really excited for where this is going to go.
And it's just you, or do you have any other developers on your team?
Just me for now. Just me for now.
Just you building an entire medical tracking device system from scratch. With all the AI stuff, we hear a lot of different people using AI different ways. Like, as a technical person, what's been the one most effective AI technique that you've employed to do what you're doing? So
started with ChatGPT, that was pretty good. You could ask some questions, generate me some code, things like that. But I tell you what, since the AI IDEs have come out, where it's been baked into the IDE, and there's various opinions on this. Do you do the AI stuff outside and then bring it into your IDE? But I use Cursor for everything basically.
Mm,
And if I want to write, even the boilerplate boring stuff, that you
mm,
kind of know you have to do, but you don't really want to do, like, oh, I need a validation class for this. Go write me one, and 30 seconds later it's done.
yeah.
So those things, that's time saving. But even like with iOS development, I use it with Xcode. I use the two together. So Cursor will basically generate me some Xcode components. It will know Swift. It's fine. It can do that. I've done Swift myself years ago.
Okay.
But basically then we jump back into Xcode to proof everything, build it, make sure it compiles up there, add any permission stuff we need to, and then deploy to the app stores.
Interesting. So you've got the same folder, the same repo location open in two IDEs.
Two IDEs, yeah.
You're using Cursor to do like all the, I guess, code, generation, let's call it that, the coding, but then like the compiling, the running, the testing, that all happens in Xcode.
Yeah,
still.
exactly. Yeah. So basically we can use the two together, and it's handy that way because you can stick Cursor. I mean, and Xcode has got AI features in. Apple's not kind of got there in the AI space with their
Yeah, what is going on with Apple, man?
I know. They just need
so
to
weird.
I know they just need to get this right, but Xcode's just not at the same level. You use it, and you're so used to Cursor going, okay, I'm going to just generate. And at some points, I've been like, it's reading my freaking mind because it knows exactly what I'm going to generate.
Wow.
But a nice little thing I did notice though, what I found, I'm always I like commenting code, but then it's in two minds about it because some people go commenting code is like a bad joke. If you have to explain it, then it's just not very good.
Right.
But at the same time, commenting for the business logic of going why you did something is quite handy. Because at some point, I know I'm going to offload this code base to someone else, whether it's an agency, we're a hire developer, offshore, whatever. They're going to have to know why the hell did you do it that way. But you put a comment in, and then you move to the next line down. Cursor will then just go, I've read that comment, I know what you want to do, and I'll just generate the code for you. So it's almost like a mini prompt to save you having to go and talk to it. But those things are good.
And that really helps too. Like if anybody listening doesn't do that yet, that's such a good little, I'm going to call it like a productivity hack, right? Like because when you do that, I feel like Cursor, the way that they've designed it, like earlier we talked about one of the problems being context, right? It's like you have the context in your brain. The AI doesn't necessarily have it. So with your context, for you to just be like, hey, call this function next, or like do this next piece of business logic as a code comment, especially when it's more than one line, it's like a little algorithm or whatever you're trying to do. Like you said, that's way more efficient than going back to like the agent prompt and being like, look at this file, pay attention to this thing, like giving it a whole instruction set versus just writing the comment for what you want to happen next, the pseudocode, as it were.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like give it a mini prompt, and it's it's read the code base already. It kind of knows what you're building.
Yeah.
If you're in a particular class and you're like, I need a method to do this, or I need a database, eloquent query to do this, or an active record query to do that. You can basically just go, okay, I want it to do that. And in some cases, we've got a quite complex data model with all the data we've got, and we do lots of tricks to kind of speed things up by denormalizing it all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a lot of complex models, complex relationships, but in certain cases, I want to do a really complicated type bit of data display, and I can just go, right, I need to do that. And rather than spend like 2 hours myself going, okay, how am I going to structure this join query or this union? Like, just go figure it out for me. I just want the data coming back in this way. Use my models, go do it. And it saved me a ton of time. We've even done other stuff where we've done an Android POC, and I haven't done Android development for years. But in a couple of days, we went from nothing to having a basic, 50% feature parity with the iOS app.
Wow.
By using, again, the same trick of Cursor and Android Studio together. Because obviously also with these IDEs, they all have their own subscriptions, don't they? You're going to pay a subscription to Gemini, you're going to pay one to Cursor, you're going to pay one to Copilot, another one's ChatGPT. Just buy one. Just be careful you don't rinse the tokens. Because you might go through them too quickly. But that works for us. But so far we've built quite a lot with just myself doing it.
Very cool. Very cool. So tell me what's the next big milestone for Hansel that you guys are looking forward to? And then, for anybody listening, who are you guys looking to connect with? Either customers, investors, just anybody who, you'd love to hear from.
Yeah, so milestones for us, like I say, are our own hardware. And we've even got a roadmap for our hardware of where we want to take it. So we kind of want to add all sorts of features to that hardware, temperature monitoring, ultra wideband, all sorts of stuff to do really kind of good location, monitoring type things. But our software platform is the one where the value is coming in. So we're going to add a ton of things to that. Scheduling, we've got some ideas of where we're going to deploy AI into that as well for features. So that's really, exciting stuff for us. I think connection wise, we're healthcare logistics. We'd love to have conversations with anyone that is in that space. So whether you're a hospital yourself, basically in dealing with these influx of surgical equipment, trays, implant totes, whatever it is that's coming in, and you want to go, this is a nightmare for managing. There must be a better way. Or even if you're a healthcare distributor, rep, whatever, and you've got people where this is a problem, we'd love to hear from you and give you a bit of a demo of what we can do. I mean, personally, for myself, I would say I'm a kind of new CTO, and I'm a CTO of one at this point. Let's be honest. I don't speak people, and I'd love to basically talk to anyone else in the space of kind of doing things, and just see what challenges they face, kind of compare notes on how we got here, and again, mistakes, learnings, things like that. But yeah. It's early days for me in the CTO space, but I'm really excited about it. I've always wanted to get here, build something, take it places, take it to greatness, basically, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to do, and I will do.
That's awesome to hear, and I'm going to double down on what you just said around the community of CTOs. So there's one group I've heard of called 7 CTOs. I want to say, I don't know if it's US based or only or whatever. I've not signed up for them yet, but I have also been on the lookout for some kind of space like that for CTOs to come together and compare notes, compare journals and learn from each other and sharpen each other. So really, if anybody listening, if you guys know of something like that, or you've, heard, even if you just heard of it and it's got a good review, let us know, because I'd love to. It doesn't seem like there's much out there. Maybe I just haven't looked in the right places or talked to the right people, but I think that'd be super valuable.
You get a lot of kind of people in the developer space, the kind of obviously the AI space these days, but with running small companies, small tech startup companies, those are the people that I think, if you're in 1 to 10 size, 1 to 15 size of employee, what are the challenges you're facing?
Yeah.
How do you build your stuff? And I think what's really interesting is how are they using AI? I mean, because when we go out eventually to get developers or go to an offshore, and if they're not using AI, not going to use them because they need to. Now, whether they're going to be cheaper because they're using AI or we get 30% more productivity, that'd be my expectation. Be the thing, but why not? Basically, everybody should be using it these days. It's helped us. I can't see how people wouldn't be using it.
Yeah, 100%. Jason, thank you so much for the time. It's been a great conversation. Have a good rest of your night. Friday night, I think it is over there, right?
It is Friday night. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me on. It's been great.
Awesome. All right, take care, man.
Thank you.